In a region where more people send money through a phone number than a card swipe, Visa just made a hire that tells you exactly where it thinks the next battle for African payments will be won. The company has appointed Ruth Kinuthia-Otieno, the former head of Airtel Money Kenya, as its new head of East Africa. She'll be based in Nairobi, tasked with growing digital payments, deepening ties with banks and fintechs, and pushing financial inclusion across a region that has, for over a decade, quietly built one of the most advanced mobile money economies on earth. That last part is the twist. Visa isn't just hiring a payments executive, it's hiring the competition. Let's talk about who Kinuthia actually is, because the choice is the story here. Airtel Money is one of the two dominant mobile money platforms in Kenya, sitting in the shadow of Safaricom's M-Pesa, but still processing billions of shillings in transactions every year across a market that essentially invented mobile-first finance. Running that business means understanding agent networks in rural villages, understanding how a market trader in Eldoret moves money without ever touching a bank branch, and understanding the regulatory relationships that make or break a payments license in East Africa. That is a completely different skill set from traditional card network management, which has historically been about merchants acquiring point of sale terminals and bank partnerships. Visa putting someone with a telecom money background in charge of an entire region is an admission. The old playbook of just signing up more banks to issue more plastic doesn't work here. If you want to win East Africa, you need someone who has already won inside the mobile money system, not someone trying to compete against it from the outside. Now, here's the bigger picture, because this hire doesn't happen in a vacuum. East Africa, and Kenya specifically, is arguably the single most important proving ground on the planet for what a cashless mobile native economy looks like. M-Pesa alone processes a volume of transactions that rivals the GDP of the country it operates in, and it built that empire without Visa or MasterCard anywhere near the center of it. For years, the global card networks watched from the sidelines as telecom operators became the default rails for everyday payments. That's now changing, but not because mobile money is failing. It's changing because the next phase of growth is about interoperability. Merchants want to accept mobile money and cards and QR codes without friction. Cross-border commerce between Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda needs settlement systems that don't depend on which telecom you happen to be subscribed to. That's the gap Visa is chasing, and it's precisely why they need an executive who speaks the language of agent networks and USSD payments, not just chip and pinning terminals. This also has to be read as a direct answer to MasterCard, which has been aggressively courting African fintechs and telecoms of its own, from equity stakes in mobile money units to partnerships with the likes of MTN and Airtel Africa at the group level. Visa has made similar moves elsewhere on the continent, backing fintechs, investing in digital infrastructure, and pushing its Visa Direct and Tap to Phone products as ways to meet African merchants where they already are, which is often a smartphone, not a card reader. Appointing a Nairobi-based regional head with deep local credibility is a signal to every bank, every fintech, and every regulator in the region that Visa intends to be a serious local player, not a distant multinational parachuting in generic global strategy. In a market this competitive, credibility with local partners is worth more than any ad campaign. And that credibility is exactly what a former Airtel Money chief brings to the table on day one. So who actually feels the impact of this? Start with East African banks and fintechs, who now have a much more locally fluent partner at Visa to negotiate with on interoperability deals, card-to-wallet linkages, and cross-border payment products. Then there are the millions of unbanked and underbanked people across Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and beyond who are the actual target of that financial inclusion mandate in Visa's own statement. If Visa gets this right, it means easier remittances, more merchants able to accept digital payments without expensive hardware, and tighter integration between mobile wallets and formal banking. If it gets it wrong, it's just another multinational logo sitting on top of systems East Africans built themselves. And then there's competitive pressure on Safaricom and the mobile money incumbents who now have to watch a card network trying to build bridges into their own ecosystem rather than compete against it head on. That's a more sophisticated threat than a rival wallet app. It's an attempt to become infrastructure underneath the infrastructure. The real test starts now. Kinuthia-Otieno inherits a mandate that sounds simple on paper. Grow digital payments, deepen partnerships, expand inclusion, but actually requires threading a needle between Visa's global card infrastructure and a region that has largely leapfrogged cards altogether. Watch for new interoperability announcements between Visa and East African mobile money operators over the next year, and watch how MasterCard responds to keep pace. Whichever network figures out how to plug into mobile money instead of fighting, it will end up owning the payment rails of a region with some of the fastest growing digital economies on the continent. That's the real prize here, and it's why one executive appointment in Nairobi is worth paying attention to. Thanks for watching, and if you want more breakdowns of the moves shaping African tech and global fintech, subscribe and